Peter should be on as a panelist, right?
Maria said that he was a yes.
Okay, no, I have him as an attendee. I just wanted to make sure that that's
Yeah.
who we're moving over.
Hello.
Start video. Now they see you.
Oh, okay. It only took
Hi.
three
Hi, Peter.
Hi.
tries.
Hello.
Thanks.
Good. Nice to see
Major renovation of my computer is coming up because I keep having trouble with Zooms. I was talking away and nothing was happening.
you look good now.
Thanks.
Liz, I think John Cunningham said he'll get here after his 4:30 meeting
That's right.
finishes.
So is
Uh,
everybody
And Matt is not coming. So I think that's everybody, right?
traveling? Yeah. Is Austin here?
Yes, Austin is here and Bob Cookta is here too. I'll move him over so he can,
So he's going to talk about the plantings.
some landscaping, yes.
Okay. Okay.
And I
you
have,
ready?
yeah, I'll talk after you call the meeting to order.
Okay. Good evening. This is the Tuesday, December the 13th, 2022 meeting of ACCA. And we have one item on the agenda this evening. 1362 Boston Post Road. And this is a continued discussion from our November meeting. It's a special exception permit modification to convert 21,504 square feet of undeveloped area into an enclosed dog park. And I believe Austin is here to make the presentation. Hello, Austin.
Hello, thank you for having me again. So we took your recommendations and put them on paper, and so hopefully we can move. Bob Cookta was generous enough to lend his expertise for our planting plan,
Okay.
and Aaron has been a big help in this as well. So I guess I could share my screen. I'll attempt to, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
One of the things we did was we pulled the original site development plan for the park and showed the location of the proposed dog park on that map. So there are some, it's not an as-built of the existing conditions on the park, but it's accurate to the parking lot area and that front portion. As you know, that large concession building was never built and the boat launch. So some of those improvements are not, actually constructed. However, it gives a good understanding of where the property lines are. And both Austin and I have been contacted by the architect, John Matthews, for the property owners to the east, which is this Marine Ventures property, this kind of odd shaped parcel directly to the top. It has this triangular point. And that development, which I believe you've reviewed in years past,
Yeah.
for that residential, it's a mixed use, but residential component near this area of the park. This area that is shown as state of Connecticut land is actually town owned at this point, and is now owned by the town instead of the state. However, the Marine Ventures piece is to the east, as well as another triangular piece that is state owned that is almost including the frontage of the park. So if you're standing on the Post Road, which you can see on your left-hand side of the screen, you're actually looking through 3 different parcels of ownership, both the state Marine Ventures and the town's park. So one of the concerns that the architect raised was the proximity of the park to the future residential development, should that project get underway. This narrow little strip, and he did show us sort of an overlay of their site development plan and as it related to the park's location. And they had a suggestion of maybe rounding off this back end, which is sort of why it looks a little more like a rounder shape as opposed to that rectangular shape, which would provide a 60-foot offset from the Marine Ventures property. So this is something that Austin and I talked about today, because John had reached out to us just yesterday or today with this proposal. Kind of shows where the existing tree line is, and the park, the fence area would be at its closest 60 feet from this corner piece. And I apologize that this scan, you'll see there are lines, vertical lines on this drawing. It was actually a sticky note that kind of went in a rectangular shape to scale of what the proposed, so you can kind of see this underlying rectangle where the corners are cut off and rounded here, as well as some of the proposed landscaping, 3 trees inside the park, and then this hatched area towards the road, which focuses on the planting detail that Bob Kukta has, that you can talk about those species specifically. But this, I guess Austin's looking for a little feedback as far as this freer form shape. If that's a little more agreeable, you know, with the natural cedar fencing and landscaping, is it going to make that much of a difference to have a different shape? And one of the things I think to consider in this adjacent development, just on the top, that's a parking area. Those are 22 parking spaces that are proposed in that specific location as part of this residential development. And the residential units begin over near the words Marine Ventures. And I can kind of show you, I'm happy to share that drawing that John Matthews passed along. But just to give you a perspective that there's the potential that there could be other obstructions in view from the post road in the future, should that development get underway. And so this landscaping that's proposed by Bob is really in the front corner, sort of that your view from the entrance to the park. And I guess the question is, to what extent do you want that wrapped for full, view from the post road when you're subject to some potential redevelopment on the Marine Venture piece?
Well, my feeling is that the shape is vastly improved. It looks sort of amoeba-like, but it's a natural sort of form. And the harsh sort of rectangular space didn't sort of sit well in the situation that it is. I think that my opinion is that the planting should go all the way around as far as possible, because it's indeterminate whether the facility that John designed is going to be bought and built. It hasn't happened yet. So, but the dog park will be started next year if all goes ahead. So my feeling is that it should be softened all the way around, even though the shape is much better. And I look forward to hearing about the trees and things that are proposed for the outside. But I think they should definitely go all the way around, and not necessarily in that perfect round sort of shape. They should be done a little more
And they, yeah,
freely.
and they are. I just kind of hatched it as a general
Oh,
to the detailed sheet.
Okay. All right.
But yes, Bob was much more careful in his strategic placing of appropriate clusters of
Yeah.
shrubs and trees.
Well, our aim is to try and create as natural looking space as possible, because that's the whole purpose of the park. Everything should
Right.
be sort of soft and relaxed and, as I said, as natural as possible. So,
So maybe,
anyone? Sorry.
yeah, no, that's good. I think to get some more feedback for this general shape, and then maybe Bob can kind of walk through the plants.
Yeah.
Liz, to your point, this is Alex. Imagine if the tree line over to the right, you could almost bring a tree line over to one side so that the dog park runs into trees. So it's not just a bull ring in the middle. That might
Oh.
soften it. Just a thought.
The line of the outside shape of the part of the dog run you're talking about. Yes,
Yeah,
the dog-
so right
Yeah.
above where it says C sheet 23 for parking area planting, if
Yeah.
you go to our left as we look at it, I think I see tree line existing sort of
Yes,
in cursive. So you could almost either bring the park over, the dog park over, or the tree line over, and the park kind of the dog park kind of you lose an edge into some cedars or something. Might be kind of
Yeah, I think
interesting.
I think that's a good idea. It would be easier because the park hasn't been built yet. I would think to just move that shape, sort of segue it into where the trees are. I think that's a good idea.
well, one of the concerns was to keep that distance from the marine landing because of the residential use. So they were looking for that 60-foot offset from the limit of the fencing. So it may have to be kind of designed more of a landscaping feature to tie it in, as opposed to physically relocating the.
Okay, I think that would be fine. Yeah.
Can I,
Anybody? Ron?
can I
Yeah.
ask a question? You may all jump on me for this, but is this, and maybe this was, I missed one meeting and I'm not sure, you know, I may not be up to speed on this, but was it resolved that this is the very best place for a dog park in Madison?
Well, I'll let Austin answer that. I think they looked in many
Yeah.
spots.
Okay,
Yeah, so we, initially, the dog park idea was at Bauer Park. And they, you know, after many goings around at the committee level, decided that it wasn't the best place for it. And then the Board of Selectmen approved this location as well as the Salt Meadow Advisory Committee. It's sort of, you know, local to town. It's on the main drag, which is accessible by everybody. There are, you know, a lot of people use the park in the summer and the spring and the fall for athletics, which would then provide opportunities in the dog park as well. I think it's a good spot for it, and it will have the most usage in this area.
Okay, thank you,
my
Austin.
experience with dog parks is that they're not particularly in residential areas, but you know, I'm limited to Guilford and Branford, and you know, they're sort of isolated somehow.
But you know what, I think you're right. We've discussed this before. My feeling is that it should be tucked away somewhere.
Yeah.
But I gather from Austin that they've spent a lot of time looking for a spot, and this one was chosen. That's why it's really important to soften it, disguise it. It shouldn't be, you know, the first thing you notice when you go into the park, when you enter the park. It should, the landscaping is extremely important with this
I'd agree
project.
with that.
Yeah.
And Ron, you saw that they went to cedar and softened it up as far, this is not the chain link fence that they
I do
had
see.
first proposed.
I remember that.
All right. So Peter, do you have anything to say?
No, I'm kind of catching up because
Yeah,
keep
it's been a while.
having trouble
Yeah.
logging. Finally,
Okay.
and now I'm on with my phone. I'm not caught up. I see very lengthy minutes, which is helpful, but I haven't had a chance
Yeah.
to look at.
Okay.
So-
All right, so maybe we should move on to the landscaping. Unless there's something else, Erin, that we should discuss before then.
No, that's fine. Austin, do you want to switch to that plan
Sure.
from Bob? I can share it too if you don't have it.
Yeah, if you have it, if you could do it, thank you.
You bet. Now, Bob, you're gonna translate for us here.
Sure. That's
It's
why
a,
I'm,
it's a little faint, but I can
How did John
get
go?
us zoomed in a little bit here, I guess. Well, too
John
far.
Cunningham
Yeah.
disappeared.
well, I'll give you the down and dirty of it. I received a call from Austin, and his at the point that he contacted me, the dog park shape was rectangular. So and I took the dimensions that he had sent to me with about 128 feet of screening needed on the eastern side, the way that the dog park was set up. So having looked at this latest iteration of the shape, more like a donut, and even talking with Austin this morning, I understood that the park itself was going to be shifted a bit away from the parking lot. So this particular linear depiction of the landscaping could be adapted on the perimeter of the fencing and with additional plantings. I mean, the same types of plantings could be incorporated all the way around, and actually because of the plant choices would blend in perfectly with the tree line and the native plants that are already there, which is why I chose the initial red cedars, paper birch, bayberry, and then the trees on the inside of the dog park where people standing with their dogs or the dogs themselves over time would get some shade, from deciduous trees like black gum or elm, or even tulip poplar. I had a conversation with Holly Johnson at Summer Hill to see what was going to be available, and so there may be a few substitutions. She wasn't sure that we would get the number of red cedar that might be needed to actually go all the way around. And at the point that I was actually designing it, my understanding was it was going to be a chain link fence with the black plastic slats. So if we're now at the point where it's a red cedar fence, that's quite a different look. But the plantings do marry very well with what's in the park, and even complementary to the plants that we put in the parking lot in the spring. So from my standpoint, it would be just a matter of utilizing more plants than my plan actually depicts. But I'm not sure what the perimeter length is, but if you did a simple tripling of the numbers of plants that I'm showing on the plan, that probably would encircle the whole exterior of the fencing.
Bob, I can't really read the names of the plants on this. I'm on my iPad.
Right.
Can you just list the plants that you were thinking of?
Sure. To
Okay.
start off, the Austin talked about maybe 3 trees inside the fencing area. So
Yeah.
one, the tree on the left upper corner is an American sycamore, which gives a very large crown, would be well adapted to the gravelly soil there. Then on the lower left would be a black gum. I did note that in the park, just behind the pavilion, there are several black gums that are already growing successfully that are native to the site itself. And then on the upper right, I was initially thinking of maybe an oak, a scarlet oak. White oak is a little bit difficult to get in a large size. So when I talked with Summerhill Nursery this morning, or yesterday morning actually, we were also talking about a possible American elm or tulip tree as a substitution. They were still, because it's only one tree of each three, it might be that I still could find what I had chosen originally. They're still figuring out, and going through the winter, it's always a little chancy whether a certain crop of trees or shrubs is going to be able to provide the numbers that we're looking at. So sometimes substitutions, would be needed. So on the bottom of the screen, the first plant is a sweet pepper bush by what was indicated initially as the gate or the unleashed area. And then 3 groupings of red cedar, sort of the star-shaped depiction. And then
How tall, Bob, excuse me,
Yep.
how tall are these plantings along the perimeter are they? I mean, will
red,
they,
well, red cedar is really a small tree, and because it would be planted in the open, they could get over time, they're somewhat medium growth, 30 to 40 feet. But because you have sort of gravelly soils there, the nutritional levels might slow them down, but they'll be above the fence. If you get a large enough size, 5-gallon size, it'll be as tall as the fence when you plant it. Bayberry, which is a somewhat evergreen. Sometimes it gets through the winter and holds on to its leaves, but it's well adapted to salty, gravelly, dry conditions like you see in the park. And they'll get up to 5 to 8 feet in full sun. They're very tough. They do provide some habitat as well, different than the cedars. And I've also included paper birch or river birch. We did plant some river birch in the parking lot, but as a different birch. Paper birch, if it's available, has a nice white bark, and it's found in natural settings with juniper and bayberry. So it will look very natural, not exotic at all. So if those were planted in random, not linear, soldier-like fashion, in 5 or 6 years, you wouldn't even know that they were planted. They would blend in with the forest that's out there.
and what about grasses? I think that's an important thing to include.
Well, the existing ground on the interior is little blue stem grass. It's very hardy, and it really doesn't need to be mowed. With the traffic that the dogs are going to, well, I'm thinking that the grasses there will survive even without any mowing or treatment. I mean, they're tough. The unmowed part of the park is all little blue stem where the old runway is. And I'm out at the park quite often, and lots of dogs are walking through the fields. Not the playing fields, not the athletic fields, but they're walking, out into the coastal forest. And the park's been in existence at least 10 years with a lot of dogs regularly going through there. So I don't think the dogs will really impact the number or the density of the grasses that are there. I don't think any seeding will need to be done except after the fencing is put in if there's disturbed soil. It's
Yeah, I
gonna be,
wasn't thinking necessarily of the surface. I was thinking of grasses that are decorative grasses. You know, Hammonasset has grasses interspersed with other things, Rosa rugosa and all of that. And it's, you know, that they really can shield the edge.
yeah,
Oh.
I would suggest switchgrass, which gets up about 30, 35 inches, or big blue stem, which would get up to 5 feet in tall.
Yeah.
I have a strip that I have grown just to get familiar with the plant in my own yard, and you know it gets seriously up to 5 feet tall. It actually works as a good hedge for
Right.
you know, screening from my neighbor. It's right next to my driveway, and you can't see my cars when it's fully grown.
And they're attractive in the winter too.
Yes, yep.
So I
And-
think to Liz's point, I was looking for ornamental grasses too, like Carl Forster or however it's pronounced, or some other feathery stuff that sort of has that natural look and that
Yeah.
you would blend in. So if you were driving by, it would just look like nature had planted it. And I think you're kind of onto that. But is that the look that you're?
Yeah,
see.
the little blue stem combined with the big blue stem and switch grasses would blend without having to go to a cultivar. I as a
Which is why
my plan doesn't include any cultivars. My focus was on native plants that would blend 100% with what's out there.
That's a good thought. That's exactly right. But I think if you sort of intersperse some of these more decorative grasses with the shrubs and things and the trees, that will create a natural sort of feel.
Correct. There is some differences in height and texture between switchgrass and big blue stem and little blue stem, and those are
Yeah.
all available.
That's great. I would definitely encourage that. And so then just one more question about the trees in the center. What are they going to grow in their full height to roughly the same height, or are they, how is that going to work over time?
I would say the sycamore and the oak, or if we couldn't get an oak, an elm, they're going to be 70 feet tall at maturity, 40 to 50 feet wide. The black gum is a smaller, more densely branched tree, but it still gets up to 60 to 70 feet. I've seen a lot of it growing along the edge of the marsh at Hammonasset, right close to the Route 1, across from the little cottages
Right.
in the park, and I've planted them in the park, and they seem to do well, which is the same soil conditions as a salt meadow.
Okay, so these trees will do well in that sandy soil.
Yes.
dumb question, but does dog urine affect these, or while they're getting going?
It actually would act as a mild fertilizer.
Oh, boy.
And the
you know.
other so that's good. And the other
Yeah.
thought was, I love the idea that the inside grass isn't going to be like an athletic field, that it'll be more natural looking. So does
Yeah,
that
it's
mean
gonna
it'll
be-
just get mowed like every couple times a summer only, and it'll have like a meadow look inside?
I don't think they even need to mow it at all. They
Wow.
should just leave it the way it is. It's tough, and you know, the dogs pound. They're not gonna. I mean, it depends on how many dogs are gonna tear it up. But you know, I like the shape, the revised shape, because dogs don't want to be cornered, and so with a rounded shape, they're going to be able to run more freely, get some more exercise out of it. You know, with being that shape, chase each other. But I don't see any real dog damage in the park. You know, even at Bauer Park, I know there's a lot of dogs that get walked there. And but the little blue stem is a really tough grass, so I don't think you just leave it alone.
Great.
It's
Now,
a-
I'm so sure that this is your bailiwick, Bob, but we did request to see where the benches were going and where the disposal units were going. Austin, have you sort
I
of
can-
thought?
Yeah, I can talk to that. So,
Okay,
You want me to do this, Austin? So you
yeah,
can,
perfect. So you'll see, I'm moving my mouse like you can see, you can't see that.
yeah, sorry.
So right where it says, unleashing area,
Oh, sorry,
that's okay.
I'm moving too fast for my mouse.
There we
Does
go.
that work?
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop moving.
So you'll see at the bottom of the screen, there's two areas. One is the unleashing area, and the one to the left of that is our mower entrance area or maintenance entrance area. So I would stay away from those areas with benches. So benches right in between those, I think we could get 2 or 3 benches in between there. And then dispersing them amongst the park at locations around the outside and leaving the inside, open for the dogs was my idea. And I do have 2 options for the waste stations that I'd like to show you to get your opinions on, if that's okay.
okay, sure.
Okay, so there's 2 different colors. We have the green that we see at probably most dog parks. And then they also have black and gold. So those are really the 2 options. So I just wanted to get your opinions before, so we can make a decision on which waste receptacles would be.
So these supply the bags, right? As well
They
as,
come with the bags, but then we would replenish them as needed.
okay.
So wouldn't black complement sort of the hardware and some of the other features in the park?
That was my thought. Yeah.
That would
How
be
many
my,
do you need?
4 is a good number. Yep. So this comes in a
They come in a
bundle of 4.
4-pack.
Yeah.
they're not cheap, are they? So-
No, but they'll last a long time though.
Okay.
That's I just see that $1,000 each. Gosh.
Well, the $1,000 for the 4 of them. It's,
Oh, I see. Before. Okay.
Still not cheap, yeah.
Well, they have to be sturdy, I
Yeah.
gather. So these
can-
are to be looked after on a regular basis. New bags in there and the bins cleaned out, right?
Yes, as we do with all garbage at every park, the Route 1 area downtown, we collect garbage every single day. We go to Salt Meadow and collect garbage every single day, and this would just be
Okay,
another
good.
stop on the route.
That's great.
And ever
And then-
since my department took over the downtown garbage, we've had 0 complaints to the selectman's office, whereas before, when we had a contractor do it, it was continuous complaints about,
Over-
overflowing bins and garbage all over the place. But since my department took that over, we have not received any complaints about that. So the guys do a great job and want to keep the area clean. They live in town, so they respect all the parks and want to make it a great place for everybody to be.
That sounds great, Austin. Well, one more question here. Who's going to water all the plants? Who does that?
Bob,
I was well trained this summer, that's for sure.
you
That-
saw him out there every day.
I just need another 100 feet of hose, that's all.
You should get one of those big containers that you can put on a little sort of trailer or something.
On the
and ju-
truck. That's what Guilford has, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense than.
But we have
using-
public water out on the park,
Yeah.
so that's much easier than having to fill the tank.
Bob and
the-
Austin, if you had to put trees in afterwards, like for example, you wanted the oak, but you couldn't get it right away, is the service gate big enough to allow planting of trees down the road, or if one dies to have access to
It's-
removing it?
It's a 15-foot width, the gate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Austin,
so
would
we-
you
we
consider
could
putting
plant in the-
benches under the trees for shade for people so that they don't have to sit for an hour or so in the hot sun around the
Once-
perimeter of the park?
Once the trees become shade, once they are able to provide shade, so that's gonna be what, Bob, 5-10 years before they're big enough?
Yeah, I would
Right.
say 8 or 10 years.
So once that happens, yes, that would be a perfect spot for a bench, but not until then.
You have
You
to be,
said, sorry, go ahead.
you have to be patient. Is there any way to provide shade in the meantime while the trees are growing up? Because it can be,
Well, there are 4 trees on the edge of the parking lot already that I planted in April,
do they have,
which they're about 8 or 9 feet tall already.
do they have benches near them or under them?
There are no benches near them yet, no.
Uh,
But they
That
could
seems
be.
like be a good idea, yeah.
Those are outside of the park.
Right.
So as a
No.
dog owner, you need to be in the park with your dog, not outside, so that would not be.
Bob,
Yes.
are you going to move I think they're evergreen trees that are in that space right now? I think there's 3 evergreen trees within the area that the dog park will.
I wouldn't think you'd have to move them.
You're just going to leave those, then add the large ones as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
that would certainly be additive, you know. It would cast a little bit of shade.
Right.
I have a-
Okay,
And does the plant material meet with your approval?
Sorry, Ron, what did you say?
Does
Joe-
the choices of plant material meet with your approval?
Yeah, it's just me, the varieties that Bob listed are fine. Bob, you are gonna have to stretch out from Summerhill Nursery to go to different sources. Great source for the shrub material, not for the tree material. I myself, I tell every client and I tell the town of Madison the same thing. Put as big a budget as you can put forth on the trees inside the dog park. I apologize. My laptop at home fizzled out, so I'm on my iPhone. I missed that point. What size caliper are you thinking of planting when you first put them in?
Initially, it was a 10-gallon for the sycamore and the oak,
Yeah.
and a 5-gallon for the black gum.
Okay, so I'm just going to throw it out there. None of us are going to be around when those trees push shade to us. Okay, those are way too small for a project like this. I would go to the town tree specs, meaning on a new commercial application, it's supposed to be 2.5 to 3 inch caliper. And Aaron can help me out. It might be 3.5 inch caliper. I just came from a town. The reason I was late, I came from a town of Guilford tree meeting. We're moving to 3.5 to 4 inch caliper. The trees take a long time to develop.
Yeah.
So if you could get larger sizes of the trees, the rest of the material is fine. The only thing I was going to mention that during the presentation, please do not push all the plant material, shrub material next to the fence. If you have 60 to 50 feet of area around the dog fence, make sure that the plant that you've planted can grow to its full size without hitting the fence. That's usually a rule of
That's
thumb
fine.
that I would use. All right. Because there's plenty of room there, but the tree sizes really have to be moved up. And to answer Peter, one last thing, Aaron, to answer
Yeah.
Peter's question, we're redoing some areas down in Jacobs Beach. We are bringing in shade structures to get some shade down there, I would strongly recommend doing some form of shade structure by this dog park, where if someone wanted to go there and allow their dog to run, they could be in permanent shade at the very beginning, not 20 years from now when the tree's fully developed.
Right.
Those are just my own thoughts.
Very-
If everyone thinks I'm crazy, that's totally fine.
No,
I'm just
thank you
looking
for
at it from
saying
other
it.
projects that I'm on, okay?
Thank you for saying it. I think to drive by and see it develop properly will make people a lot happier than
Yep.
having to wait 10 years.
Yeah, that's a
Yep.
good point.
And John, just a question for either you or Bob. What if we, if you bump to a 3.5 inch caliper, what, per tree, what's the rough cost of that?
Okay, picture this, Aaron. Right now, you're probably $125 to $150 per inch. So a 4-inch caliper shade tree is probably going to be $475, $485 wholesale. And I would certainly hope that the town of Madison would be buying wholesale, not retail. Okay. I like all the varieties Bob chose. The black gum is the one variety I would probably not use as a shade tree. It's the slowest form of shade tree that's probably out in the environment. It's a terrific tree, but if you are trying to plant something that you want shade to, I would go to red maple, vigorous, poor site tolerant, dry site tolerant tree. Get something with some canopy. That black gum, it'll be 30 years before we're sitting underneath some shade.
Wow. Really important points, John.
I guess
Um,
one of my, and I wasn't told what kind of budget, this is
Yeah.
not a Mad for Trees project. This is a town project. And if the numbers need to be worked, I mean, mine were just the plant choices and not necessarily from budgetary. I have no idea what their budget is for the whole project. So, yeah, if they can put in bigger trees, I'd be happy to see that happen as well.
Bob, that's a good point. If you were just selected to go through varieties, totally fine. Aaron, I really think this has to follow the town guidelines on a commercial project. That's why I brought up the caliper of the trees. I
Yeah.
do not think because it's a town project, you can then move back in scale on something that obviously needs to have some real mass to it.
Well, it would certainly be worth doing. I mean, the trash cans cost $1,000, and so if you've got 2 trees that cost $1,000, that should be at least,
And, and Ron, you might be spending $1,000 on the trash bags for the poop pickup.
Yeah, I know.
I can attest because of my work at Hammond Acid. We spend $6,000 on mutt bags for the whole
Right.
park. So
I know. Well, it's once you put in a facility, you have to be able to back it up with some with a
Right.
budget
right.
for the long term. So yeah.
Hey, Bob and the association that's putting this together, over in Guilford, on the green, we asked for donations for new tree plantings, and we have a surplus of money for new tree plantings in Guilford. I'm the chair of the Guilford Green Committee. I'm also on the tree committee, and we asked for donations from the general public. Might be a time to go to Friends of the Madison Dog Park and say, could you help out and use that money for the planting of certain areas there? Just a thought.
So
I think Guilford did that too, right? They had Friends of the Dog Park in
Yes, they did.
for
Yep.
funding.
So John, what would be our wish list then if right now to move this forward, we wanted to specify what we wanted? Can you advise?
It's just me. I don't think we necessarily have to bring in like 9 and 10-inch caliper trees, which would be A, problematic to get there, and B, to plant. I would go to 4-inch caliper. That is a 25 to 28 height tree with probably a 12-foot branch structure. Okay. Readily available. You could easily plant them through, I would put them in first before the fence went up, okay? At least you're further along down the road. It is still going to be 10 to 15 years before they really start to add shade. I think what Peter brought up is the most important point. Get some shade down there. That park is in full sun whenever the sun's out. Get something where someone can sit down underneath an overhead structure or an individual shade canopy on a bench and watch the dog run around. I think is really important.
I agree.
Even if,
I agree with
even
that.
if it's,
People won't want to go if it's in full
Yep.
sun.
even if it's just a few more solar panels.
Oh, my gosh.
You know.
I have a-
Um,
Could I broach a question? I have a technical question, exiting and entering question. How do the dogs come do they go through like a sally port to get into the thing? Is there a way to keep a dog from rushing out a gate that's
Yes.
been, I'll let
There's
some,
there's what's called an unleashing area. So there's a gate that goes into an area. You unleash your dog and then open another gate to get
Yeah,
into the actual
like
dog.
a sally port?
Yep,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah. Because the other thing I noticed when we went to one is you're coming and going, taking dogs in and out through the same space. And if they don't like each other, you're going to be in the middle of a dog. And I wonder if there could be two separate gates.
No, so Guilford has one gate. It's just, you have to be a responsible dog owner. That's a
Yeah.
big part of going to a dog park, is being responsible for your pet.
Mhm.
And if
Yep.
your dog doesn't like dogs, then you absolutely 100% should stay with the dog.
Yep.
That's the other, it's always the other dog I'm
And
worried
and
about.
Austin,
Yeah.
is there wide enough area to get from the parking lot to the gate to the dog park without, so if a dog's on a leash, it's not dragging across somebody's hood, or, is there like enough berth to get from the cars to the?
Yeah, there's enough space. So I go to the Guilford one, there's probably 10 feet between the gate opening and where the cars are parked. And there's plenty of room to do it there.
Austin, are you thinking of putting up sort of in a sort of friendly way, rules and regulations to use the dog park kind of thing, the separate sign? So people,
100%, yes, there will be signs. There's generic dog park signs that have rules of every dog park, and those will be placed at the entrance to the park.
okay. All right. Well, I think we've pretty well covered this. John, I'm glad you made it to the meeting because your input was really, really valuable.
Right.
Liz, I apologize. My daughters aren't back from college yet, so the laptop,
Oh,
You
Wow.
can't fix it.
I could not
Liz,
figure
can
out how to
can I
change.
ask one
When they
more
were home,
question?
I would have been back in 1 second, but I had to phone.
yeah. Well,
Liz, I just wanted to confirm one of the notes from last meeting. So the weld wire on the inside, there was discussion of galvanized. Which color galvanized do you want? Do you want just the metal or black? We talked about that. Just wanted to confirm what your opinion was on that.
I think it should be black. Metal will reflect light and you'll be able
Yeah.
to see.
Well, I think, didn't we say the galvanized
Thought
disappears?
it was metal.
It
The
does.
galvanized is that gray that will sort of match the softened cedar. But John looks like he's stuck. Let's see what John thinks.
Well, black fences are known to disappear visually. So that I would urge black myself. It doesn't sound right when you're looking at it closely, but it really, your
It
eye
does.
goes,
Yeah.
So that's what we talked about last time, but I just want to confirm that you
John's coming
want
back.
black and not just regular metal. Galvanized nonetheless, but the color was in question.
John, what do you think? Are you there?
I cut out again there again. I really think the silver is fine. I do not think it has to be a powder coated black.
All right, so Liz, can you come to an agreement? Because you're not at a decision there on that.
What about Ron? Let's have your input.
I have no feeling about it. I mean, if everybody wants black, that's fine.
Yeah, and it's not a decision maker. I happen to like the silver of the galvanized. If everyone else likes black, so be it. We have enough plant material that's going to be planted where it's not going to stand out. So whatever anyone else thinks is fine with me. Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm with John, but out of curiosity, is there a price difference? And if so, I'd go with silver and then use the money for plants.
We'll have enough funding for it. If black galvanized is the way that we want to go, that'll be fine.
Which will
Is
look
that your
worn out,
preference?
which will look worn out in 5 years or 10 years. Faded, that is.
It'll fade. It'll fade to gray. Right, yeah. So are there any other questions or comments or additions?
I have a question about the drawings. Was there any discussion prior to this about presenting a drawing which actually shows the actual dimension and the perimeter of all of this? And now that it's a round shape rather than a rectangular shape, should the drawings not reflect the planting as well in a more accurate way?
So we did have the size of the park originally was presented to you guys a few times.
Yes, the size, that's for sure, but not the
Yeah.
shape. I mean, as it's turned out to be. I mean, I think round is good, but it's a pretty loose drawing, and the plant material isn't spaced around this thing the way it was
So-
when it was a rectangular.
You know, I think a shape like that, Ron, I
You
think
know,
it
what shape is it going to be?
drawn. It
You know, when
almost
they
comes-
install the fence, what shape is it going to end up? Is it going to end up looking just like the drawing, or is it going to be sort of a field decision as to what shape this is going to be?
I think some of that. I think it can be random. It can follow the lay of the land.
Well, who's
And I-
making that? Who will make that decision?
So
Whoever,
this
Yeah, sorry.
drawing, yeah, Ron, I could kind of speak to, this drawing is to scale, this site plan. The overall rectangular shape matches the dimensions from the Harkin engineering drawing, which was roughly 128 or 130 by 168. The width of this is the same. There are, a corner has been shaved off and that extra has come in to nail down that 60-foot offset, I think, from the property line. So field determining, that property line is marked in the field and can be staked. It's likely going to be the overall 128 by 168, softening the corners.
Round.
It's likely done by, well, it's likely going to be done, with a line. So the plantings, I think the hearing for Planning and Zoning Commission is not going to be until the January 19th. So Bob has time to reflect the comments from the committee and add those onto the site plan. And dimensions can be identified on this plan, even though, it is to scale. So it can be measured off, but we can.
Well, I guess just like any
Identify
other project,
dimensions.
a more accurate drawing would be in keeping with what we've done before. But at least there should be a drawing which more or less accurately reflects what the shape is going to be.
That's right. Whoever
And
builds.
I don't necessarily think that shape there is what will actually end up being. So, all the projects that we see have very detailed drawings about, what's going to be built or what's going to be presented. So, in physical form.
Ron's point has crossed my mind the whole meeting. What accountability do we have at the end that this is going to turn? We have your cross hatching, Aaron, of sort of some
Yeah.
landscaping and,
So
and
this
this
is
amoeba shape, but is it going to be like a radius and it's a perfect circle? Is it a natural shape?
I don't think that was
where are
the
irregulars
desire.
going? Right.
What's
from
design?
the committee. That didn't seem to be the desire from the committee, was to have this exact shape, which was the reason
No,
we
but
came
there's a
across
difference
from
between
this.
an organic shape and then a perfect geometric shape. So are we looking at a circle or are we looking at an amoeba?
It's
that-
not a circle.
No, it's
No.
not. Right.
It's
So then
it's
how- is it
clearly
gonna
not
be
a
designed-
circle.
So to Ron's point and what I think I'm getting at, is it going to look like that or is it just going to, what's it going to look like at the end? We don't know.
Well, this is, right, this is the proposal at this point,
What proposal?
is to look, what's that?
There's no drawing for
That's
it.
right.
What do you mean there's no drawing? This is a scaled drawing
Well,
on the site plan, so
So
It doesn't,
we can count on the fact that when this is constructed, it will look exactly like the drawing.
you need a shop drawing for that. With
no one
dimension-
does it's not a surveyed location of a
The post
proposed
should-
fence line.
Post a dimension. Where do they go? A guy's got them all, they just unloaded out of a truck. Now where do I start? Somebody needs to be told what direction to go, how far, then hang right and how far. And that drawing wouldn't tell me what to do.
That's right.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you
So-
handed that to someone, what would they do? I mean,
Here you go. You take this Paul. I'll take I'll take the other one.
Well, there's measurements from the existing parking lot. We know the overall length, so it can be field determined. And I don't think, in reality, as a fence, it doesn't have to be exact to
Right.
that. This is the overall shape. It's going to be buffered by landscape planting. I don't think it needs to be a survey delineated
But each section
fence
of
line.
each section of fencing between the posts has to be able to withstand the wind and people climbing over it. And so you need to be able to tell them it can't be more than 8 feet or 10 feet between the posts. Some sort of guideline like that, it seems to be necessary.
The fence contractor will be determining that in the field prior to the installation of that. And that's who Austin has been working with.
Well, the lengths of
And so
fence,
they'll run-
how long are the lengths?
From
between each post.
the panels,
Yeah,
oh, Austin has that. Did he
Well, my
tell you what
point,
sections?
my
his-
point is, it doesn't matter whether it's 8 feet or 10 feet or 12 feet. Those are rigid, are rigid structures, and they're not curved. So a curved shape will have to be made out of those fence lengths. And somebody is going to have to determine where all that goes in order to achieve a shape.
one way to do that would be to have a lot of rope and you run it around into a rough circle and you poke it into place and see how that looks. Then you add some and then you say, okay, posts go here, here, and here.
When
It
I
is kind
give the contractor the drawing, and I tell them this is the shape that we want this fence to be in, and we have it staked out in that rectangle, and it's the scale on the drawing. I think, this guy's been doing fencing for 40 years. He knows how to do all that. It's not like.
Right, but he does need a certain amount of instruction.
which is Austin's role, and after the process. This plan, as we presented to you, was more to give you a concept of this new shape to make sure that this was along your recommendations and the landscaping. The information will be, the landscaping will be shown on this particular site plan prior to the public hearing opening with the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Well, the landscaping for sure. And my concern was the shape, not so much the planting or the landscape.
If that shifts, I mean, does that affect the recommendation of the committee? If it's off by 3
Well,
or
I
4
think that
feet in a certain
the
area?
committee has to be assured that the shape is a viable shape and that it's going to look presentable. That's the name of the committee, right? So, and we just have to be assured that what the end result will mirror what's been presented.
So Austin, your fence contractor, where it could be the sort of asymmetric shape and he's perfectly, he can do that.
I'm fully confident that the fence contractor could do whatever we ask him to do. Yes.
So
Austin is-
also, I think the question is, he can do whatever we ask him to do, but what are we asking him to do?
That's
So
what it's.
this is,
That's
I,
what
the role of the committee is to provide recommendations to the Planning and Zoning Commission based off of this proposal. So if your recommendation is that you would like to ensure that the layout of the park closely resembles this particular shape, then that's the recommendation that you make to the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's not that the applicant proves that to the committee after construction.
I
This is,
think Aaron
this is
Well,
the
I-
proposal before you.
Liz
Aaron,
had wanted a
I think
different
that
shape.
that's actually not the logical approach, because I think this particular shape just gives us an idea. The one that's been presented here just gives us an idea of a shape. It is not perhaps the actual shape that Austin or Bob or anybody wants necessarily, but it is an idea. And while we can say this is a great idea, it doesn't mean that planning and zoning can approve the building of the idea instead of the actual shape.
So what
Ron?
Austin can do prior to moving forward to the public hearing is share this proposal to scale with his fence contractor, and he can identify where the posts would go. And
That
any,
would probably be a help, and then a shape will emerge.
Ron, I
So-
did a quick calculation
square feet, or
from,
you might want to say how many square feet you want enclosed, or what's the linear dimension of the fencing, because that'll affect the price.
it's
we've done that
604
we-
feet.
Times already. I don't know, you guys you've seen those drawings with the linear feet 4 times now, so I don't know why that's in question.
Well, not
It's
as a shape.
604 feet of fencing, according to the drawing that I worked the landscape plan from,
Right.
Okay,
as a rectangle. Now, you could still create a semi-oval with 8-foot increments, which are a typical length of a fence section. So you divide 604 by 8, and you have that many posts plus 1 to make your exterior dimension or your space.
You know, it seems to me, and Ron, I get where you're coming from, but we're not dealing with a rectangle, a square, or a circle.
I know that.
It's by its very nature going to be asymmetrical, and I don't think we can say that we want to see exactly what that asymmetrical shape is going to be now. But I think, you know, during this discussion we've had, I think it seems clear to me that that it will be asymmetrical, and asymmetrical shapes, you can't compare them to any other shapes. They will be unique shapes. And so I think as long as it follows the sort of the natural sort of feel of the land and the lay of the land, even though it's a little different from that, I think that will be just fine.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's the whole point, I think, just to sort of soften it, take away those sharp corners. And so as long as it fits in that area and it's the square we want, and it works with the posts and the length of the, you know, connectors, then I think it's going to be fine.
I agree.
Combined.
So Liz, I think everyone agrees with what you're saying. And I think that's the fear, is that without an Austin there, and I presume Austin, you'll be there to convey to the fence guy that we're not doing a perfect circle, that it is like this organic shape, right? So I think
You're
we're
gonna
just
receive the drawing that you all received today, which is that amoeba-like shape that you're seeing. That's what he's gonna see to scale, the same exact thing, and he's gonna be asked to reproduce that shape, yes.
I think it'll be fine myself. John, any comments on that?
No, is Vinny Paolini doing the fence for you, Austin?
Yes,
Okay, so I know Vinny. he'll follow a field mark out prior to, and I'm sure it will turn out all right. I'm not as concerned about the fencing outline because we do have a scale drawing. We can all look at the things. A lot of times, maybe the town calls us back and says, hey, we put some stakes in the ground. You guys want to go down and take a look at it? Great. I'd be more than happy to go down there and take a look at it. I'm more concerned about the plant material placement. It should be field determined. It doesn't have to be exact placement of a piece of plant material on the plan. I just would want to make sure that it looks like a very natural setting moving forward. I'm pretty sure that from tonight's meeting, all those things are going to probably happen.
Well, John, it's important though. You mentioned earlier that the trees should be planted before the fence goes in, which makes sense. So
Well-
it would be really super important to determine where those trees go based on the layout of the fence.
Yeah, I didn't realize, Ron, one thing I will say, Aaron, there's really a 15-foot gate getting into this thing.
It's a double. Yeah, it's 15
So-
feet from post to post.
Okay, so Ron, if there's a 15-foot gate, you
Okay,
could
well,
drive
that
the
makes
world's
sense.
largest, you could drive the world's largest payloader through that fence. So they could put the fencing up and then they could determine where they might want the trees because we're going to have access into the thing.
Well, that's fine. I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. I didn't know why you said that earlier because
I forgot about the 15-foot. I thought it was like 2 4-foot gates would be very problematic to drive a Kubota through. There's 15 feet. You could do
Right.
it later.
that makes sense. Right.
Anybody else have any comments? I think we've had a pretty thorough discussion here. Anyone? But John, because the planting is, I think, so important, would you make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the project as presented with some minor stipulations that we move to 4-inch caliper on the trees on the inside of the dog park, and that the plant material outside the dog park, the varieties are fine. If it all came from a local nursery, that is totally fine. I would stress the red cedar over the rest of the planting. I think the red cedar is a terrific naturalizing plant down there. We can go through that as a final list. And I think final determination of exact fence placement can be brought to our attention, or maybe should be brought to our attention prior to the fence going in.
Is there a seconder for that motion?
I'd second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Onward and upward.
Thank
I
you,
think-
Austin, for all your hard work on this.
I think it's going to be a great project, Austin. Thank you for all of your work on this. We look forward to
Thank
seeing.
you. Thanks, Bob.
And thank you, Bob, very much.
Yeah, I'll revise the plan to match the amoeba shape.
That would
There's
be
a-
perfect.
Customer.
That's somebody's dog got excited.
That's my dog.
That's funny.
Perfect timing.
Getting a standing ovation from the dogs.
That's right. Okay, so has everyone read the minutes from last month? Hello?
No.
Yeah, I'll make
Yes.
a motion to approve.
Thank you. Well, I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Thank you very much. Just want to say, as you know, this is my last meeting chairing the group, and I want to thank all of you so much. It's been a privilege and a pleasure. So I know you're all going to continue the wonderful work. I think we've done pretty wonderful work
I agree.
to
And thank you, Liz, for being such a terrific
Yep,
chairperson.
yep.
you.
I couldn't agree more, Ron. Liz, you did a wonderful job with your chair and being on the board since you've been on it.
Well, that's great. I mean, and I've had such a great time with you guys. And one thing I have to say, you know, I normally give you a chocolate Santa at Christmas, So I give Ron a chocolate snowman, and I'm sorry I can't do that. I wish we.
You can give me a cent, I'll eat it.
We should provide a little bottle of champagne for you for your services.
Oh, well, that would have been nice. Yeah. Erin, do you know if you're coming back from Zoom meetings next year?
Yes, I believe the plan is to have them in person
Oh, boy.
for the new year.
Yeah.
And Liz, I think you can change your mind and stay if you want.
Yeah,
Well, you can also just step down from your chairmanship and be just another member of the committee, you know.
that's true.
Or make it easy until we get the chocolates and we open the champagne. Liz, you're not going anywhere.
Good point.
Oh, my goodness. Well, it's been a long time, but I know you were all members when I joined. So you guys have been
Wow.
doing the job. And Alex, you know, you're a brand new member, but it seems like you're going to be great. You're so interested in everything. So thank you for.
I'm gonna be sad to see you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
One point, Liz, that I did, and not necessarily for you, Liz, but for the rest of the members, as the charter, revised charter has been approved, the first meeting in January is the election of officers for each committee. And the charter is written now to require a vice chair who would serve as the chair in waiting, I should say. So that's something to consider as members, you know, if you want to come up with your suggestions for nominations for the next meeting, that election has to take place in January.
Well,
Who
I
do we
mentioned
present the
that
nominations to?
I talked to Matt because he's my vice chair.
Mhm.
So Matt is willing to take it on, but you know, you guys have to sort of do that officially. And he's traveling today. That's why he couldn't join us.
I'll make a
sadly.
motion right now tonight to make it Matt.
And
I
someone has
second that.
to.
I was hoping to make it you, John.
No, I tried my hand at chair, Alex. I'm better off in the crowd.
Okay.
Okay, well, you know, I just want to say one thing. We need more good people on the committee. So if any of you know anyone, we would love to have another landscape person. So because John recuses himself if he's on a project, and an engineer, someone who really knows the town and can deal with the elements of all the applications that we get.
John, aren't you on the committee in Guilford?
Yep. Mhm.
Do you know anybody else?
Here's the one little issue in Madison, that you got to be a Madison resident. I have someone in mind, but they're not a Madison resident, but they work in Madison.
Who's that?
I can't tell you yet.
Okay.
Liz, you're not on the board any longer, so I can't give you that information. You know what I mean?
I am actually,
Classified.
yeah, until December the 31st.
Yeah.
Aaron, isn't John correct though? Wouldn't they have to be a resident of Madison?
Yeah, I believe I don't have my regs, the section in front of me, but I think there is language to that effect.
A registered voter, I think, and a resident of town.
Mhm.
The only other suggestion I just thought of, Liz, is to notify Carol Snow, our planning and zoning chair, of your resignation as of
That's right, I did not
January
do that.
1st,
Yes.
so that they know that they have the vacancy.
Yeah, okay, I will. Thank you. Thank you for taking
And-
on John's spot too.
Yeah, I did, and I'm
Delora.
not sure if I had this news at our last meeting, but John Delora is retiring from the town as of January 1st. And
Really?
so I'm serving in the interim capacity for ZEO and wetlands until we hire a replacement in the new year.
Thank you.
Are you,
Wonderful.
You're laughing?
I'm just fooling with you.
I'm just thrilled, John. I thought I got out of that gig.
Mhm.
well, thank you again, guys. I'm
All right.
really going to, maybe I'll turn up one day again. Who knows? Thank you so Thank you, John. Thank you, Ron. Thank you,
Liz.
everybody.
Have a
Good
good
night.
holiday. Good Christmas, everyone. Take
Yeah.
care.
Yep.
You
same.
too. Good night.
Aaron,
Bye.
Bye.
Aaron,
Bye.
I'll
Yes,
be in
Bob.
touch. I'll be in touch if you want me to come into the office and get copies or email me
Yes.
the modified plan.
Okay, good. We'll talk this week